I see them out there, and now we're going to build this new bridge here. We're all for it. And by the way, this new road, and we're going to have an internet that's going to be all the way. I love them, man.
Here's more of what he had to say.
We also passed once-in-a-generation investment in our nation's roads, highways, bridges, railroads, ports, airports, water system, high-speed internet. We got a little help from Republicans, but not a lot, but enough to get it passed. But the truth is, there are a lot more Republicans taking credit for that bill than we actually voted for it. I see them out there, and now we're going to build this new bridge here. We're all for it. And by the way, this new road, and we're going to have an internet that's going to be all the way. I love them, man. They ain't got no shame. They don't have any shame.
Okay, so there he's talking about some of what the Democrats, with a little bit of Republican help in some cases, were able to pass not too long ago. The $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that was passed last year to improve roads, bridges, ports, water systems, high-speed internet, and more. 13 Republicans in the House helped out on that, 19 in the Senate, which doesn't sound bad, but there are 213 Republicans in the House and 50 Republicans in the Senate. So overwhelmingly, they were not supportive. And we're going to get to more of the substance, but Cenk, I just want to pause on not just the substance of what he's saying, but the way that he's saying it. He really does seem more lucid. He seems more comfortable, more jokey, more energetic. I don't think this is just memes. He does kind of seem different in the way that he's speaking these days.
Yeah, there's several explanations for this, John. I'm glad you asked. First is obviously Dark Brandon. Laser eyes. Okay. Dark Brandon's obviously taken over, and he's obviously Joe Biden's alter ego and a much cooler dude. A little known fact, Dark Brandon was also in charge when Biden took on Corn Pop. It's a little bit like the Marvel series that you and I watched. Why am I blanking on it now? The one with the mummy, Egypt?
Moon Knight.
Yeah, Moon Knight. He's Moon Knight. That's all, right? He's got a couple guys in there. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's one possibility. Okay. Second possibility is drugs. Okay. I mean, people are saying I don't know what people advisors are putting in Biden's Wheaties. I don't know what it is either. But kidding aside, he is only 2,000% more energetic and interesting in these speeches than he has been for the last couple of years. Okay, but now finally the real answer. Not to say that the other two aren't perfect, aren't completely out of bounds, but anyway, seriously, there's a giant difference between electoral Biden and legislative Biden. Electoral Biden does a pretty good job. I mean, he did win the election. Obviously, he won the very competitive primary. Did Obama help him get there? Did MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, et cetera, help him get there? Of course, right? But he did win, right? And now on the campaign trail, he's much more energetic and much more in defense of Democratic positions, which are very popular, and actually attacking Republicans. When it comes to legislative Biden, he goes back to whichever one that was the boring Moon Knight character, and there's reason for that, because when it is electoral politics, it's about his power and the power of the elites and how they have to maintain it. When it gets to legislative politics, well, that's having to deliver on campaign promises that would help you. Mm-hmm. And they don't really want to do that. So all of a sudden, power down. Let JoJo run everything. That's what he called Joe Manchin the other day. So there is a very, very real reason why you're seeing Joe Biden more animated now. And by the way, which Joe Biden should you expect if the Democrats hold Congress? Back to he's going to shut it down. This is not going to keep going like this, and he's going to go back to, there's nothing I can do. I have to fight Republicans. No, I love Republicans. He's going to go back to that. It's a 100% guarantee, because politics is only about one thing: money.
I think it's a 99% guarantee. I think that there is a very small chance that he starts to actually like doing something with his presidency. He's getting a lot of positive reinforcement, including from the sorts of Democrats that he wouldn't normally get it from. I think he almost certainly will, whether for the ideological reasons you described or because you can only take these drugs for so long before they stop working. I can't say for sure. Or maybe one of the other alternates will take over and he'll wake up strapped to a bed surrounded by a ring of sand. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, yeah, we would never see him do that same mocking tone, like impersonating Joe Manchin. He would never do that. Joe Manchin's shameless. Come on. He would never say that. But also, he wouldn't generally say it about the Republicans that he just said it about. I mean, he's mocking a couple of hundred Republicans effectively, which Democrats do during elections. Definitely. They love doing that. But Joe Biden doesn't necessarily do that. And again, it's not like he was naming names, which we're going to do in just a minute, but he was more aggressive than he used to be. And maybe that's something you don't come back from. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. But I do overall like that he's taking it to the Republicans. He's actually publicizing the things that they did that have good effects. Now, yes, the 2021 infrastructure bill has plenty in it that we think was just massive billion-dollar giveaways to industry and all that, but it does some good stuff. And all too often, the Democrats pass something rarely and then never talk about it again. So and not only is he talking about it, but he's making it interesting enough that people will cover it. It's not just a boring thing where they say that they did such and such a thing with a pipe or whatever. He's mocking them, and that will draw the eyes as it has with us.
Yeah. So look, John, I'll grant you. In fact, I'll even go to 98% chance that he's going to shut back down. 2% chance that he's going to keep Dark Brandon. Now, why? Because, guys, I don't want you to think that this is just like a phenomenon that happens all the time either. Like, be credit where credit is due. Biden is being much tougher than any Democratic president usually is under similar circumstances, much tougher than Pelosi and Schumer have been against Republicans, et cetera, and much tougher than he's ever been, ever. So there is a second phenomenon going on that gives you that 2% chance that he might continue being tough, which is the polling. They're looking at the polling, and every time that Biden flexes, his numbers go up. And it's not just about Biden. You know, so Fetterman runs a really tough campaign. His numbers skyrocket. Now even Gavin Newsom is pretending to be a tough guy. Gavin, pretty boy Newsom, right? So soon Buttigieg will be out there and be like, I'll tell you what, I can't stand Republicans. Because they're all actors, right? So the new director has said the numbers are showing, the ratings are showing that they like Dark Brandon, that they like tougher Democrats. So go out and pretend to be a tougher Democrat. Good, I'll take it because the rhetoric matters. Messaging matters, media matters. So though that's overall a positive thing, and I would much rather have Democrats win, obviously, than the Republicans. But at the same time, it's our job to keep it real with you guys. Number one, is it going to affect the substance? Well, as we just said, 2% chance. Like, still, at the end of the day, they're slaves to money. When their donors say jump, they say how high. They have no strength against their donors at all. They could do a complete collapse, and they did. We told you they would when everybody was excited and, oh my God, Biden's FDR 2.0. You guys remember that a couple of years ago, right? And I came out here and I was a sourpuss. I'm a eternal optimist, but I told you guys, look, my job is to give you your real news. He's not going to do any of those things. And people are like, Jake, you're outrageous. You think he won't do voting rights? You think he won't do $15 minimum wage? You're crazy, right? No, he didn't do any of those things. He didn't do the bare minimum because he works for the donors, period. They all work for the donors. Okay, so last thing on this. As we're excited that he's fighting back against the Republicans a little bit, let's also note that it's really the bare minimum. I mean, it's not like he's ripping their face off. He's like mildly criticizing them. And for Democrats, even though it's like the lowest bar in America, they think, whoa, man, we just broke the world record in the long jump, right? Or the high jump. No, when it's the donors, you break the world record on the high jump. When it's attacking Republicans, I mean, John, what do you think? Is this 5% of what I would do? 10%? 20%?
Yeah, it's possible you would have rushed the crowd, maybe, thrown the podium, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe someday we'll see. But yeah, we'll have to see. I wanna keep seeing this style of rhetoric, but much more importantly, I want to keep seeing him doing things that justify the rhetoric. You're talking this way, giving the speech about fascism a week after you cancel a chunk of student loan debt is one thing. Even if he were to keep doing it, but the student loan debt was the last thing that he did, or the climate change bill, then that'll start to wear on us after a few months, after 6 months, after 1 year. You got to keep actually accomplishing things. And thankfully for him, whether they maintain control of the Senate or the House or not, there are a number of things that he can do along the way. But let's mention a few names. Joe Biden attacked the Republicans for publicizing the idea that they got money through the infrastructure bill, a bill that they voted against. Joe Biden wasn't naming names specifically, but we can do that actually. And this is pretty common for Republicans. So there was a press release from Representative Ashley Hinson, said that $829 million that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was going to get to modernize locks and dams on the Mississippi River was game-changing. And it might well be. That sounds really good for that area. But back in November, when they were trying to pass that bill, she called it a raw deal for Iowans and spending at its worst. Couldn't be that worst if you're going to be promoting it. And so happy that the money went through. Let's see. Kay Granger celebrated the news that $403 million for a flood control project would be going through for Texas, her state. That funding was allocated as a result of the infrastructure bill as well. She called it a liberal wish list in November. I guess she is now out as a liberal because she apparently got what she wished. And so there's a ton of these, honestly. There's Republicans calling the bill, which regardless of which infrastructure bill we're talking about, like the worst kind of socialism, or it's going to lead to the destruction of America. But as soon as they vote no, they put on their coat, they put on their hat, and then they rush home to their district to start talking about how they got the money. Some of them, Jake, talk about how they were leaders in securing it. Like they were instrumental in making sure that the bill they fearmongered about and tried to stop actually went through. It's pathetic, and there's only so much you can do to try to get people to understand that gap between their rhetoric and what they actually did. But I'm glad that they keep bringing it up. I want to see it in campaign ads too.
Yeah. So the politicians are liars. Shock me, color me shocked. First time I'm hearing about it. But by the way, if you're 50 years or older, it probably is the first time you're hearing about it because you probably grew up on television. And in television, they think politicians are the most honest people in America. No, they're all goddamn liars. So, of course, they're like, I hate this. It's social communism, Marxism. I love it. I brought it to you. Oh, I'm the greatest. Come on. They're obvious, monstrous, weirdo liars. Okay. So, but last couple of things here. Don't get it twisted on the infrastructure bill either. That it had plenty of good things, but it was a giant corporate pork bill. That's why it passed. That's why it got a couple of Republicans to vote for it. In the old days, all the Republicans would have voted for it because they're like, donor money for everybody. Okay, so it's almost all that money is going to go to corporations to build those things, and we need those things. But that's why it passed in Washington, because the money is first going to giant corporations. Otherwise, nothing. Thou shalt not pass. And finally, to John's point, the reason why I have 2% hope rather than 0% hope that Dark Brandon survives the election either way is because of the student debt bill, the student debt relief. Like, so Biden did a couple of things. He had about 5% change. He was on the classic Obama 5% change track, but then doing the student debt relief and then passing a couple more bills, I got him up to around 15% of his promises. And for a Democrat, I think that over the last 40 years, that probably breaks a record. So that I have a tiny bit of hope that he'll do a couple more things in the next 2 years if they hold Congress.
Yeah, especially, and again, I will focus on all the things that Congress and having the Senate, or whether if they were eventually able to actually get rid of the filibuster, do carve-outs, that would all be great. There's a million things they could do, but he doesn't need to have those things to still be able to deliver, in particular on many of his promises. He could deschedule marijuana or decriminalize or whatever. He could do that now. He doesn't need the Senate. He doesn't need the House. And there's been a lot of activists putting pressure on him. Fetterman brought it up to him, apparently, when Biden recently visited believe it might have been over Labor Day. I'm not sure. But that would be a great thing that he could do, that he said that he would do. And he doesn't need the Senate and the House for. So I would love to see that. But anyway, I want to go to one more video because I think he gets another dig in at the Republicans in this.
Guess what? You know, Republicans talk about being fiscally responsible. We are reducing the deficit while all these things we're doing to spend money. Not a joke. Last year, I reduced the deficit $350 billion. So I don't want to hear it from Republicans about fiscal responsibility. I don't want to hear it. Well, I mean it. I don't want to get going here.
I think he did get going there. He sort of laughed it off at the end, but he actually sounded a little bit mad. I was worried he was going to heat ray the audience for a bit. And look, I don't care about the deficit reduction. I think that the bills could have been stronger if there had not been such a big focus on that. If that hadn't been such a massive delay for the bills in many cases, Manchin wanting to make sure that they generated as much revenue as possible. I don't think in comparison to the challenges that we face, that should be one of the main priorities. But he is also doing that. And the Republicans love to talk about being like fiscally responsible. We also know that basically the only thing they prioritize when they every decade or so, manage to squeak through a presidential win through the Electoral College is to hand, I don't know, $1.5–2 trillion in tax cuts to the wealthiest people in the country. There's nothing responsible about it. The only reason that stereotype has lingered for so long is because the media likes the idea that Republicans are better for the economy. They're not better for the economy. They're better for the people in the media who make large amounts of money. And so I'm glad that Biden is mocking that idea too.
Yeah. Super last things. He's got to stop saying no joke. Why? Is everything else a joke? Why does he keep saying that? It's so weird. Okay. But on a positive note, look, more reasons to hope. Student debt relief. When he was contemplating it, every elitist came out. Everyone in the establishment came out and said, don't do it. If you do it, the sky will fall. The Republicans will bash you for doing giveaways to regular people, right? And everybody will hate it, and your poll numbers will plummet, and we'll lose the midterms. And shockingly, he didn't listen to that. And they did debt relief. And I told you the political calculation behind that. Look, for the people who don't like the debt relief, it's a tiny percentage of their calculation. Are they really going to vote on that? Somebody else got debt relief. I'm voting against them. Maybe 1% of people. But for everyone who got debt relief, it was the biggest issue in their life. Yeah. So 40 million people are now excited to go vote for Biden and Democrats. And you could see it in the poll numbers. So since the sky didn't fall and the establishment pricks were lying and now exposed as either liars or idiots, there's some chance that Biden saw that, or Dark Brandon saw and was like, I see you guys. Mm-hmm. And maybe if I legalize marijuana like I said I would, or he partly said he would, maybe the sky won't fall then either. Maybe my poll numbers will go back up. Because for politicians, it's either about money or ego. So maybe if we could get his ego going in the right direction, he might pass a couple of more bills in the next 2 years.